So don't wipe tears remind you you're alive.
Yeah, it was like a difficult time. When it ends, it's just devastating.
Ed Sheeran, a man in love with music, one of the most influential artists of his generation, armed with nothing but a guitar and a microphone, he fills stadiums across the globe with his music, his emotion. But for Ed Sheeran, music is more than a passion. It's a lifeline that guides him through the darkest of times.
Music's always been like therapy to me.
Various hardships plunged Ed into a state of depression. He bottled up his tears, refused to cry, even in front of his wife.
I barely cry to my wife.
Eventually, the floodgates burst open, and his inner turmoil becomes public.
Ed Sheeran broke down while performing.
Singer appears emotional.
The moment you find out the worst thing in the world has happened to someone that you love with all your heart.
He was like your everything. He believed in you when no one else did.
Ed's mental struggles run deeper than many realize. This documentary will reveal how Ed deals with grief and why he feels compelled to suppress his emotions. We look at personal setbacks and untold stories that have shaped Ed Sheeran into the artist he is today. Each chapter of his life carries the notes of a song worth listening to.
You feel like you're drowning and can't get out from under it.
It's alright to cry. Even my dad does sometimes. What we're going through is common, but doesn't mean we don't feel it.
Ed's songs are a reflection of the human experience. He transforms the events in his life into stories that resonate with everyone. This quality makes him arguably the most successful singer-songwriter of his generation. His versatility is captivating. From soulful ballads to catchy pop tunes to rap verses, Ed's albums fly off the shelves, sold by the millions, and his songs regularly top the charts. However, this global journey had the most humble of beginnings. On a rainy evening in Dublin, streetlights cast a faint shadow on the sidewalk. In a bustling corner of a pub stands a red-haired boy, guitar in hand. A voice rises above the murmurs of the audience. Moments later, Edward Christopher Sheeran's first crowd is mesmerized. Ed Sheeran grew up in the English countryside, surrounded by music from a young age. For him, it was more than just a hobby. Music was his refuge and his voice. He discovered a love for melodies and rhythm early on, a love that would never leave him. Ever since he was a child, Ed dreamt of making a living with his music. However, growing up with a hole in his eardrum, along with a squint and a stutter, his passion wavered. Maybe he was not destined to become an international pop star after all.
Captain Block is lost in my bedroom somewhere.
The thing that I found most difficult about it was knowing what to say but not really being able to express it in the right way.
Specky, ginger hair, really short, like English, from the countryside.
That guy doesn't become a pop star.
As a teenager, Ed began writing songs, crafting catchy melodies and weaving them into a story. His performances at school events often earned him standing ovations. A school report labeled him as a natural performer, and his classmates voted him most likely to be famous. Ed felt flattered, but he couldn't quite believe it. Torn between his evident talent and the self-doubt that overshadowed all hopes of making it, he never quite gave up on his dream. His starting conditions may not have been perfect, but he knew he could make it. Ed had a clear goal and came up with a plan to achieve it.
It wasn't like I was in this lost maze of trying something. It was like, no, this is what I want to do. And to do it, I have to do all these gigs and write all these songs, and it will happen. And it did.
He treated his old guitar like a treasure trove and began his musical journey with it. Ed played wherever he could, in schools, at small festivals, and eventually on the streets.
When I left school, I remember being like, I know that if you work hard enough, you can do this. I always knew that you just have to work harder than everyone else because there's always going to be someone that wants it more than you.
Being a street musician meant raw, unfiltered performances. Sometimes strangers heckled him during his live performances. In interviews, Ed remembers encounters with drunken teenagers who kicked over his donation box and interrupted his songs with shouting. Others disrupted one of his early music video shoots by constantly walking into the frame. The busking life was tough, but Ed was ready to brave the challenge. These early days were crucial to his career. Not only did they teach him how to engage an audience, but also how to deal with rejection, learning experiences that Ed needed to survive in the music world. Ed Sheeran's early years laid the foundation for a career defined by authenticity and pure talent. He has proven that music must not only be heard, but also felt. Fans love the genuine emotions his songs radiate with every chord. His lyrics are a window to his soul, honest and unvarnished. When Ed sings, it feels like he's speaking directly to you, as if he's sharing his deepest secrets with you alone. This connection is magical. It captivates listeners and leaves them wanting more.
I don't deserve this. You look perfect.
There are various media reports suggesting that Ed was homeless for a while. Most of the time, it worked out okay.
I met a lot of people, had a lot of experiences that an 18-year-old probably shouldn't have. And when I didn't have a place, I'd stand on stage and be like, hey, if anyone's got a couch tonight, it would usually work.
It's said that he sometimes slept near Buckingham Palace or on public transport.
But there were just moments where I just wanted to give up. Yeah. The nights that you don't have a couch to sleep on, or you don't have money in your pocket, or food in your stomach, or like a charged phone or anything, yeah, those become the nights where you reassess your situation.
During this time, Ed developed unhealthy eating habits. He admits in an interview with Rolling Stone that he struggled with an eating disorder. He loved fast food, kebabs, and beer. For a long time, he compared himself to other pop stars and wondered why he didn't have a six-pack. Everyone seemed to have great figures, but he felt he was overweight, even when he wasn't. Self-doubt consumed him internally. Ed might have been lacking in the gym and his body might have accustomed itself to a calorie surplus, but his work ethic was world-class. Ed lived for music, and his hard work paid off. At a music festival, he met Jamal Edwards.
Jamal was the first person I connected with in London who was my own age, so we just bonded instantly as if we'd been to school together for the last 10 years.
He grew up loving grime music, I grew up loving grime music, and although I'm from Suffolk and he's from London, we just feel like the same person.
I was living with him. He'd become my best friend, and we were having this sort of rise together. Like, I basically lived in his bedroom.
The two were still teenagers, but they had ideas that would revolutionize London's music industry. One of Ed's songs went online on Jamal's YouTube channel, SBTV. People loved it.
Every label was like, well, no, that's not going to work. With the music industry, you have to wait for one person to be like, that's great. And for me, it was Jamal.
It didn't take long for the video to skyrocket. The exposure on Jamal's channel propelled Ed Sheeran to stardom.
We were having this rise together.
I didn't have anywhere to live, and everyone saw me as a joke.
My video on his platform was the first video that went over 1 million. All of these things in my life would not exist had it not been for him.
It's been an amazing journey.
To this day, Ed remembers one of the most beautiful moments when he first made it onto the radio with his song, The A-Team.
They say she's in the class 18.
First time ever selling out a show, like first time doing like an album signing, first time in America.
Pastries and they scream. The worst things in life come free to us, 'cause she's just under the upper hand and goes mad for a couple grams.
In 2011, Ed Sheeran burst into the music scene with his debut album, Plus. The single, The A-Team, went viral, propelling him from an unknown street musician to a celebrated star. The song, a heart-wrenching ballad about drug addiction and despair, showcased what Ed had to offer: depth, empathy, and undeniable talent. From then on, it was one hit after another: Lego House, Give Me Love, and later Thinking Out Loud, a song that became a wedding anthem worldwide. With each new track, Ed solidified his status as one of the most versatile and sought-after artists in the world. Ed has the unique ability to blend genres as if they were colors on a palette. Folk meets pop, infused with hip-hop rhythms and a dash of rock. This unique blend makes each of his songs unmistakable, yet immediately recognizable as Ed Sheeran. In his early 20s, Ed moved to Los Angeles and continued to follow his passion, music. During this time, he formed a deep friendship with Taylor Swift.
The first thing that struck me was his voice. I've never been more jealous of anything in my life.
We wrote several times, and the first time that we wrote, we sat in a hotel room in, I think, like Arizona. Wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, laughed and had the best time and became really close friends.
We don't really go a day without speaking, which is cool. Like it's helping me through this whole mental process to have someone that's already been through it.
The rumour mill went into overdrive. Are they together? Are they dating? Are they just friends? What's going on?
The rumors about Ed and Taylor being a couple turned out to be untrue. During this time, Ed dated singer-songwriter Nina Nesbitt. Many of their songs are about each other and their relationship, such as Ed's song Nina. After the breakup, Ed entered into a relationship with 𝗓𝗙 Andrelos. Thinking Out Loud is about her. In 2015, Ed began dating his childhood friend Sherry Seaborn, his later wife.
Mine and Cherry's relationship, it's the most amazing thing in my life that no one really knows about. Everything in my life sort of got so much better when she got into it.
The two knew each other from their school days in Suffolk, but lost touch. Years later, as adults, their paths crossed again by chance in New York City.
We bumped into each other again.
And then me and Ches started dating, and it was so natural, and it just felt right.
Ed and Sherry appreciate each other's down-to-earth nature and mutual understanding. In a world where Ed is constantly in the spotlight, Sherry is his connection to normalcy, a reminder of his roots in real life, away from the stages and cameras. Sherry, in turn, admires Ed's passion for music and his unwavering dedication to try and touch people through his songs.
What one?
Going to Cambridge.
You just heard back?
Yeah.
You said you didn't.
I did.
You did.
I totally knew what I was getting into, but there's definitely aspects of it which is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
But while the spotlight in Ed's music life grew brighter, there were also some darker sides. Ed's sudden fame came at a high price. He found himself in a strange world, invited everywhere but always a stranger, recognized everywhere but never truly belonging. The constant media presence and the pressure to perform took its toll on Ed. His songs connected with more people than he could ever know, yet he felt lonelier than ever.
I remember being at a party and you ringing me up and saying Grandad's died, and then looking round and being like, no one here cares. If I was at home, my friends would be like, come on, let's talk about it or have a pint or blah, 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 blah. But I was in this sort of environment where it was all surface level, fun and happy, but actually underneath it all, there's no real connection or real love from there. So that was the day that I moved back home.
It's a phenomenon many celebrities talk about. They have many fans who feel connected to them, and still they feel lonely. While fans and media see an idealized version of their personality behind the scenes, those affected tend to struggle with the real effects of their fame. The constant observation and judgment in the public's eye can lead to heavy self-criticism and erode self-esteem. On the outside, cameras flashed and fans cheered, but inside, Ed had to get used to the shadows of his new life alone. New acquaintances were often tinged with suspicion. Who wanted to get to know him as a person, and who saw him only as a star? This constant dichotomy between his public persona and his private self wore on him. It was like being on a stage, from which he couldn't step down. In an interview with Planet Radio, Ed expressed his annoyance with fans taking selfies. He'd rather talk to the person than constantly smile into some cell phone camera. Fans take selfies because it's quick and they don't want to bother him for long, but sometimes he longs for more connection and conversation. Ed openly discussed how his sudden success had isolated him from normal social interactions. Going to the bar with friends just isn't as easy anymore. Crowds form around him. Being a celebrity became a mental strain. His songs, often filled with personal lyrics, reflect this struggle and his attempts to cope.
And everyone is already home, but I'm on my own.
He used music as a vent to process his feelings and deal with the pressure, which helped him maintain a connection with his fans on a very personal level. Despite it all, Ed's interactions with fans are always marked by politeness and gratitude. It's the life Ed chose, but it took years until he learned how to live it.
I'm a solo artist, and you go out on stage and you sing to 60,000 people, you're all connected as one. And then you sort of get off and go into a room where it's silent and there's only the sound of an air conditioner and it's just you. I think this is why I took my friends on tour.
Ed prioritizes long-standing friendships and sometimes erratically shuts himself off backstage to be with his friends.
It's very, very protective of my group of friends. Like, not really many people come in and not many people leave. It's pretty much like the same as it's been for the last 10 years.
It is widely known that Ed is a big rap fan. For a long time, he idolized Eminem. As a child, he knew the fast lyrics by heart, and practicing to Eminem's music helped him overcome his stutter.
My dad bought me the Marshall Mathers LP when I was 9 years old, not knowing what was on it, and let me listen to it, and I learned every word of it back to front. It helped me get rid of the stutter.
When he had the chance for a collaboration with rap legend Eminem, Ed had a fanboy moment. He couldn't believe Eminem agreed. He was thrilled like a little kid. Ed also worked together with Elton John. This time, it was the other way around. Elton John is a big fan of Ed, his voice, and his songs. That's how the collaboration came about. Ed's albums Plus, Multiply, and Divide are not just collections of songs. They are explorations of different musical landscapes. From profound ballads to uplifting pop hits, each album demonstrates his artistic maturity and his evolution as a musician. With Shape of You and Perfect, Ed achieved his biggest hits to date. Perfect means a lot to Ed in particular.
I found a love for me.
Like, Perfect's my favourite song I've ever written, and the feeling that I got from Perfect is worth way more than anything that Perfect's ever done commercially, because I wrote it and I was like, yes, this is great, I love it. And then you put it out and everyone else says, we love it, and you go, yay, everyone loves it.
Ed Sheeran's success is not only based on his musical genius, but also on his ability to connect different influences. He brings together different musical styles, just as he brings together people from diverse backgrounds. In a world often divided by genre boundaries, Ed builds bridges.
So no one can actually see me yet because of the screen. A lot of the time I'll come up here just before the show just to be like, okay, that's that, and just know where everything and everyone is.
Ed Sheeran's journey through the world of fame was not without its challenges. His meteoric rise brought not only worldwide recognition, but also personal and public struggles that profoundly shaped both his music and personal life. February 22nd, perhaps the worst day in Ed Sheeran's life.
I pictured this year a little bit different when it hit February.
Together with his wife Sherry, Ed drove to the hospital. A horrible feeling brewed in his gut.
I kept saying to you that it was just a lump and not to worry, and that it was all good. And then I was rehearsing, and I remember getting a call from Ches. The doctor was basically like, this is really bad.
Sherry receives a devastating diagnosis. She has cancer, a tumor in her arm in the 6th month of pregnancy.
What happens is you kind of have the initial report, and then they look at treatment plans and like how you're going to manage it.
It was unclear whether Sherry would survive the pregnancy because no treatment was available until the baby was born.
I might die
There were no treatment plans that worked with a 6-month
with
pregnant.
with the pregnancy.
Ed tried to appear strong in front of his wife. He wanted to cheer her up, encourage her. He forbade himself from crying in front of her and suppressed his emotions. Later, he admits that when he was alone, he broke down at times. But that wasn't all. On a cold February night in 2022, tragedy strikes. Ed's best friend, Jamal Edwards, is DJing. He's popular in London's party scene, but this night would be his last. Jamal calls Ed after his performance. What they talk about is unclear. Under the influence of alcohol and cocaine, Jamal goes home with a friend. After more sips of alcohol, he suddenly becomes extremely nervous and paranoid. Shortly afterward, he collapses and loses consciousness. Resuscitation attempts fail. Jamal dies, at the age of 31, from drug-induced cardiac arrhythmias.
Music entrepreneur and YouTube star Jamal Edwards has died at the age of 31. He was a leading figure in Britain's rap.
Just remember waking up in the morning and getting a call and just being like, he's dead. And it's, I'd been speaking to him like 4 hours before that. And I just didn't believe it.
Again, Ed reacted to this shocking news with denial. But at the funeral and a memorial service, his emotions briefly caught up with him.
When you're putting dirt on your mate's grave.
I know everyone should be having fun, that's the whole point of the night. You feel so just lost in there.
Friendship, it's just this chemistry that happens and it's burning. You want to hang out with each other every single day and do all these things together, and it's just about sharing everything.
Get the best thing No. So he's pretending, look.
And when it ends, it's just devastating. It's obviously like a gravesite, and the person next to him and the person, there's all like wreaths saying like dad or like sister or mum, and it's just all just pure sadness of just, it's horrible.
Clouds keep forming over this house, blocking out the sun. I'm trying to keep it all together.
In a later interview, host Howard Stern insensitively brought up the death of Jamal to Ed. Ed responded irritably.
Why didn't he take care of himself? He's such a great guy. He's a great human being.
I think there's many more layers to that, man. I think there's many. I don't want to go into it, but there's more layers to it than just what the media have reported, basically.
He was annoyed because the moderator simply attributed Jamal's death to taking too many drugs, without understanding the deeper issues. Jamal didn't just take drugs because he felt like it. There was more to it. Jamal had mental health issues and struggled with depressive episodes. During his lifetime, he advocated against the stigma around mental illness. Ironically, Jamal's death plunged his best friend, Ed, into depression.
I had friends in school whose parents passed away when they were like 14. And I looked back on it, I'm like, that is when you became an adult. I became an adult recently, but that's when you became an adult, because grief instantly ends your youth.
No one saw the holidays and then our first experience clubbing. No one saw the things you did for me and never asked for nothing. No one knew about your fears because you would hide them with a smile. No one knew when people took an inch you would give them a mile, because that was always Jamal.
A few days after these two tragic events, another stroke of fate. A call reaches him on March 1st. It's his friend Shane Warne, a well-known cricket player. They talk about loss, about music promoter Michael Gudinski, who died exactly a year ago. They mourn his death and the fact that the world takes too many people away too soon. They raise a glass of wine over the phone before the call ends. It would be the last time Ed hears his friend Shane's voice. He dies 3 days later. It was less than 2 weeks before the cancer diagnosis and Jamal's death. Ed was drowning in the sea of bad news.
I feel like a lot of times in a kind of chaotic storm where you're just trying to stay level. Loss, it just took over my life.
The entire year of 2022 was extremely challenging for Ed. His wife Sherry later said in an interview that he escaped into music as a response.
This year, there hasn't been a single day that he's not been working or performing or writing or doing promo. We've barely had a conversation this year about his mental health.
Denial is a common reaction. It's a defense mechanism of the psyche.
I'm still holding back these tears. So no, I never like to talk about that. Keep it inside, yeah, you say I always hold back, and I always will on sleep.
For Ed, direct confrontation with the painful events would have been overwhelming. Denial helped him regulate an overflow of negative emotions.
There's no way he's had time to just sit and process and be at peace. I can see it and it's massive alarm bells for me.
When people are confronted with multiple severe life events, they often exclude painful feelings from their consciousness to minimize mental suffering. Temporarily, denial is helpful because it allows the individual to continue functioning in everyday life without being constantly paralyzed by bad feelings. However, in the long term, unprocessed feelings often lead to mental health problems such as depression and anxiety. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Ed Sheeran said that in 2022 he suffered from depression and anxiety. Another quote leaves fans shaken to the core. I felt like I didn't want to live anymore. And that's been my whole life. You're drowning under the waves. You're just in this situation, and you can't get out.
What this year has taught me is that plans can change really quickly.
For months, Ed suppressed his grief and fear, constantly on the go, making music. He fought back tears on stage time and time again. He didn't allow himself to cry.
I like going on stage and having fun and showing people a good time and having a good show.
I was thinking I don't want to cry in front of 78,000 people. And I found myself really close at times.
I want to make people happy. I think it's the best job in the world, and that's why I do it.
I barely cried to my wife. The show must go on.
Ed is embarrassed to cry in public. On one hand, he breaks stereotypes that men don't talk deeply about their feelings, as he does so constantly in his songs. Yet, he still tried to keep tears private, for months. After a long time of suppressing his grief, it all came pouring out.
So I had a friend pass away at the beginning of the year, which was and worst time to cry? No. She can't sing when you cry.
Felt embarrassed because it was a room full of people I didn't really know, and they had come for a good night, and my job is to be an entertainer, and I didn't feel like an entertainer that night.
Ed's wife was live in the audience that evening and was surprised.
I've never seen him cry on stage. He doesn't really cry in general. That is really unusual to see him cry.
The performance revealed that Ed didn't have his emotions entirely under control. Every tear you hold back is still heavy on your mind until you let it out.
I don't get emotional on stage, but the 𝗖𝗛𝗙𝗡𝗡𝗟 thing is still really raw because it only happened a few months ago, and also I don't think there's been time.
Sherry comforted him, making it clear that crying in public was okay. And she made a suggestion.
So my wife talked me into going into therapy, and I started doing it, and I realized it's not like a button that you press where you're like, I'm automatically okay, but it definitely helps. And I would recommend, if anyone's having real lows, just speaking to someone who is paid to hear you out and normalize it and be like, it's okay to think like that.
Therapy helped Ed. He found a healthier way to deal with his emotions. The lessons he learned with his psychologist helped him to be more open about grief and mental health issues.
I like that I still feel this way. I think this is the most respectful way to feel about someone that you've lost, is actually allow yourself to feel, rather than just bury it down.
Besides his psychotherapist, Ed found another source of solace.
Music's always been like therapy to me.
It was a way for me to get my thoughts and feelings down, and it works. It really works.
Ed Sheeran finds peace in music. It's his coping mechanism. A journalist once asked Ed why he used to hide his grief. His answer describes just how much he has grown.
The reason I haven't really done it before is like, I feel uncomfortable it being a YouTube video and a bunch of strangers are going to watch me feel something about my friend that's died. Like, I know it's important for people to understand that, to hear the record, but it's just not something that I've ever wanted to do before.
The album Subtract is the darkest in Ed's career and also shows a musical processing.
Clouds keep forming over this house, blocking out the sun. I'm trying to keep it all together.
Especially in the song No Strings, he reveals how rough 2022 was for him. One line stands out.
What we're going through is common, but doesn't mean we don't feel it.
One reason Ed denied his emotions was exactly that. It's normal to lose people. But the central realization for him was, it still hurts. Just because grief is normal doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, or that he's exaggerating when he feels it so intensely.
I know everyone goes through it. I know it's like a common thing that you can't avoid. But yeah.
It's alright to cry.
Ed tried to elude negative feelings. Drugs were often a tool for this, especially alcohol. In an interview with Rolling Stone in 2023, Ed revealed that he was a drug-addicted party animal. Until I was 24, I didn't touch drugs. I remember being at a festival and thinking, well, if all my friends are doing it, it can't be that bad. And then I experimented a bit. Then it just becomes a habit you do once a week, then once a day, and then twice a day. And then the mood without alcohol was always bad at some point. But the cocaine-induced death of his friend Jamal made him stop. I would never, never, never touch it again because that's how Jamal died, and it would just be disrespectful to his memory to even get close, he said. Ed also admitted to drinking a lot, but he stopped before his first child was born. I never, never want to hold my child drunk. Having a couple of beers is one thing, but a bottle of vodka is another. It's just a realization, I'm hitting my 30s. Grow up. You've partied, you've had those experiences. Be content and just leave it. Emotional eating has also been a recurring issue for Ed. Another common tendency in people who try to suppress and evade. What helped his mental health was digital fasting. Ed isn't a fan of smartphones and social media. He took a year off from the music business, traveled the world, and just left his iPhone at home. But that didn't save him from the stress of commercial success. In 2023, he was accused of copying melodies for the songs Shape of You and Thinking Out Loud.
Darling, I will be loving you till we're 70. Get it on.
These legal disputes dragged on for months and resulted in a public trial. For Ed, the whole thing was very stressful.
A federal jury found the pop star did not steal key parts from the Marvin Gaye classic.
In the end, he won both times in court. But once again, he was disappointed with the dark sides of the music industry. Another incident that caused a stir was the feud with the ticket sales portal Viagogo. Ed Sheeran and his team accused the company of reselling his concert tickets at inflated prices. This controversy sparked a broader public discourse about ticket prices and availability, and Ed strongly advocated for his fans to get fair prices on their concert tickets. Ed's connection to his fans is what drives him. During one performance, Ed noticed a boy in the audience. At the end of the set list, Ed asked him, "If I give you this guitar, do you promise to practice every day?" When the boy nodded, Ed didn't hesitate. He handed his fan the guitar. The reaction says it all. This moment was special, very special, because guitars aren't just guitars for Ed. It's magical how Ed handles his favorite instrument. While he can play almost any other instrument, including piano, drums, cello, and bass, his 6 strings are the heart of his performances. He gave each guitar a name, from Lloyd to Felix to Nigel. When his guitar James broke during a performance, he logically named the successor James II.
Can you pull the curtains, let me see the sunshine?
I do believe that one day I will see him again.
Meanwhile, Ed is recovering from his psychological setbacks. His mental health is steadily improving, partly because his wife received good news from the doctors.
Had my follow-up MRI scan of my arm just to see if the tumour had come back, and we saw the surgeon. He looked at the scans, and it all looks good.
She's not just along for the ride, we are like one, and moving through life together and navigating it all together.
Ed Sheeran is an inspiration, not only for music lovers, but for anyone who faces grief, loss, fear, anxiety, or depression. For anyone who tends to suppress tears. For anyone who walks through dark valleys.
If we make it through this year, then nothing can break us.
It's not often you see public recordings of Ed crying, but he no longer sees it as a weakness. It's a sign of maturity and reflection. Each chapter of his life carries the notes of a song, notes that we recognize in our own lives, notes that chronicle our past, present, and future. And despite the sad parts, this song is worth listening to.
It's just growing pains. It's been forever, but I'm feeling alright. Tears dry and we'll leave no trace, and tomorrow's another day.